This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
All right, let's call Thursday, December 23rd meeting of the COIDA board. And let's do a roll call, please, Megan.
Jeff Joyner is absent. Dave Rowling.
Present.
I would just ask if you're not talking, it's really hard to hear, so put your phone on mute or your computer.
Thank you, guys. Jeff Lord is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Craig Gelbsman is absent. Tom Armeo.
Here.
Patricia Kennedy.
Here.
Cheryl Robinson.
Here.
And Andrew Marietta.
Here.
Good. We will forego the chairman's remarks and move into our presentation by Josh Edmonds.
Hi.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, good morning. Some of you, I guess, probably know more or less about the project, and so I'll just kind of do a brief overview, and then if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. So Cooperstown has had a declining population base for a number of years, and one of the biggest hindrances that Cooperstown has kind of identified through some municipal studies is that the fact that they have a lack of housing options. And so there's a property on Chestnut Street that has sat vacant for a couple decades that we purchased, and then sort of worked through 8 months of village hearings and boards to finally come through with what is going to be a 16,000 square foot, 13 apartment multifamily building. It has 8 2-bedroom apartments and 5 1-bedroom apartments. The building is going to be a certified passive building, which I don't know how much you guys are familiar with that, but FIAS is an organization called the Passive House Institute of the US, and it stemmed from Europe, which was the Passive House Institute, and then the FIAS is the US version of that, and it's a very rigorous building standard that covers everything from appliances to walls to windows to air sealing to mechanical systems, and it usually ends up with a 90% reduction of energy use. And so this building will have a lower heat load than a normal house. And so all of that kind of ties into sort of much lower operating costs. The building is also going to have 86 solar panels on the roof, which will push us pretty much essentially to net zero. So it's kind of a nice trade-off to take a vacant property and then be able to put, 21 bedrooms there and have pretty much no energy upswing.
What's the heating plant? Just out of curiosity.
Mitsubishi heat pumps.
Yep. Air source.
Air source. Yeah. Our heat load on the entire building is less than 50,000 BTUs, and so it's easily within the realms of traditional heat pumps. The building was designed to fit into Chestnut Street in the sense that a big square apartment building doesn't fit that neighborhood. And so what you've got is from the front, I don't know if you guys can, it kind of looks pretty much like a house from the front, and there's buildings tucked on either side of it. And so you really can't see the main mass behind it. And when you look at the street view,
Do you want me to?
Closer. The building is in the center there, and that's Chestnut Crossing, and then to the right and the left are the existing houses. And so, when you're thinking about fitting 16,000 square feet, it doesn't have the imposing street facade that it could. So, in terms of site plan, the project utilizes 3 separate lots that were all sort of purchased in conjunction. You've got Chestnut Street here. You've got Chestnut Street here, and then there was a lot that came in and another one here. There's a village lane that winds in and then cuts into the middle of the block. And then there's another parcel here that connects all the way to Pine Boulevard. And so in terms of, you've got a neighborhood and then you've got traffic patterns. And so we added a private driveway out to Pine Boulevard to alleviate a little bit of traffic on the public lane here. But you've got your front streetscape, which is relatively narrow, and then you've got the larger mass of the building, which is tucked in the middle of the block. And it's kind of hidden by all the buildings on either side and whatnot. And the building is also, it's a 2-story building, but it has ground level access at both stories because as the block transitions to Pine Boulevard, it slopes up. And so we're able to bury the back story of the building underground. And so when you come up to the back of the building, it only looks like a 1-story building. And so you've got ground level access for handicap accessibility on both floors without having to have an elevator. There are some other views, some of which may have been included in your packet in terms of some info about the project.
Yeah, I sent the website, so all of these plans that he's showing are on the website.
Okay.
Your website.
Okay. So that's the gist of the project, and as we move through it, with any project like this, it's usually a kind of a tight balance when you look at the funding and the returns and the investment. And then as we watched construction materials start to climb, it started to kind of become a little bit more of an issue. And so that was when we decided to reach out to OCCO Now, especially since in the last year or so, housing has become a part of what the agency has looked at in terms of having an impact on development in our communities. So that's where we're at, and very open to any questions or.
It looks like you're sort of hiding your parking pretty well. Is that correct?
That is correct. From the street, you can't see any of it. And let's see, right here, there's the Inn at Cooperstown sits here, and it has a huge parking lot here. And so in terms of like buffering from neighboring buildings and things like that, it works out quite well. And it kind of tucks it kind of into this back section here, which is not anybody's backyard. Very, that was one of the unique pieces with one of the unique features of this property was the fact this public alley came in to give us access to that back of the building. Usually you just have, you'd have a house here and a house here, and you'd only have access on the street. But these properties kind of worked well.
Excuse me. Are you using building panels or using spray foam or?
It's a combination of cellulose and mineral wool.
Okay.
So the walls are 12 inches thick. It's a 2x6 wall that gets dense packed with cellulose, and on the outside of that, there's 6 inches of rigid mineral wool boards.
This
We were
may have been
able-
in the packet. I'm just curious, is this you're going to go market rate with the pricing here for the?
Correct. Yes, it's not LMI. It's hard to build LMI in Cooperstown.
What? Where are you on your timeline? Just out of curiosity.
Timeline, we're hoping to open around Thanksgiving next year.
So you're on. I think you're pretty much on schedule for
We're pretty much on schedule. Yeah.
material issues or not?
Some.
Yeah.
It has been a thrash. We've encountered a couple of hurdles that we've had to really twist around already, but a lot of it is insulation is actually really hard to get right now.
Yeah.
And so the mineral boards, we're still trying to track them down because nobody can give you a date on when they can actually deliver that stuff. So. But all in all, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Josh, this is Jeff. I'm just curious what Cheryl asked about the market rents. What are the 1 and 2 bedroom rates that you're anticipating charging?
So on this project, rent and utilities are all included. It's sort of part of the model of the building is the rent includes electric, heat, AC, internet, garbage, water, and sewer. So pretty much everything minus cable internet or minus like cable TV, because a lot of people Netflix or whatever now. And so the 2 bedroom, 2 bath units, they're about 1,100 square feet. They're targeted to be somewhere between 2,200 and maybe 2,500 a month. And so you figure about a $400 like allowance for utilities on a traditional rental. And so utilities aside, we're somewhere between $1,800 and probably $2,000 for one of those. And then the one bedrooms, I think they were looking around $1,800 with utilities included.
Got it. Thank you.
Chair, this is Joe Scott. I had a question.
Go ahead.
Sure, Joe.
Thanks. Josh, and I apologize, I might be a half step behind in my file review here. Do you have, has there been some materials prepared describing the need for housing in Cooperstown I mean, you mentioned that in your opening, and frankly, I've been, in the area a number of times, on business, and I can certainly see that just by my experience. But are there any local studies, the chamber or that sort of thing that's addressed that issue?
Yeah, so there are three main studies that are often referenced in terms of housing in Cooperstown. There was a Notre Dame study. University of Notre Dame did, I think maybe in conjunction with the Cooperstown graduate program, I'm not sure about that, but there's a Notre Dame study that was done probably a decade ago that identified a lot of issues and then identified a number of recommendations. But then back in 2016, Cooperstown sort of did a whole housing study and then adopted a municipal plan that identified a lack of housing, among other things. I believe I referenced that in the application, and I can also get you that study. And then I believe that Bassett Healthcare has done a number of housing studies that I believe are available.
I think Bassett did a survey, not an actual housing study, but Bassett did a survey kind of asking of their employees if there was housing available, would they be interested in moving closer? And it was a significantly high percentage, that indicated an interest in housing in Cooperstown.
Yeah,
I think
that's great. Thank you.
And
we should just get copies of that. Thank you.
One of them you have. It's been a really ongoing discussion at Bassett on a lack of housing availability when they're trying to recruit doctors and nurses. It's been something they've been talking about for a very long time. Other questions for Josh?
Jody, the IDA also, we have a housing study the county engaged in, right? Is that something that would add to this? I mean, it wasn't Cooperstown specific, but.
Yes, it was done by the county planning department. And that study is out. It's a couple of years old now, but it identified a need for housing throughout the county.
Correct pronunciation, is it Zayed? What is it?
Zayed, it's initials.
Yeah, that's what I know.
Yeah.
But it's Zayed.
Zayed,
Yeah.
So to Joe Scott's point, we should have excerpts or copies of each of the studies that references the need for this type of housing, right?
Yeah, I'll make sure, I'll make sure you have, the main one is the Cooperstown Comprehensive Plan, partially because that's an actual adopted, like the town trustees have adopted and approved that study. And so that's the main one it's Cooperstown specific. We're 3 houses off of Main Street, so we're smack dab in the middle of that. And so I'll forward that. And the Notre Dame study is very in-depth and is much wider than just this. But it's a very interesting read if you're familiar with Cooperstown. But I will forward both of those, make sure that Megan can get them out to you guys.
Josh, just a question. Are you looking at Bassett or another company being a major leaseholder? Are you entering into an agreement?
So this building is restricted to no short-term rentals. It was part of working through the village planning boards and trustees. And we're not planning on like signing 10 units to Bassett. We're open to renting to Bassett or Bassett employees, obviously. But we plan to just open leasing. There's a wait list started, and then in the summer, we'll start pre-leasing.
Are you pretty much rented at this point, you think?
Our wait list is about half full in the unit.
Yeah.
And that's without asking people or telling people it's
Or having a facility for them to move into?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay,
okay.
thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Shifts. I don't get a stiff neck. Okay, that's it. Here, next agenda item is approval of the October 28th meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
I move.
So moved. Second.
Second. Cheryl?
I heard Patricia.
Oh, Patricia?
Well,
Discussion? Everybody have an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yep.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Report of the Audit and Finance Committee. Jeff?
Yeah, I was not at that meeting. Craig Gelbsman conducted that meeting. Let the minutes stand for the report. However, we just covered the main topic with respect to what was discussed in that meeting.
Right. Does anyone have any questions? Bills and communications. Megan?
Yeah, so I did send the expenses for the second half of the month and deposits. They're all normal operating expenses, accounting, copiers, and Spectrum for Cade and for Otsego Now. And then we have one deposit that's for the rent for Congressman Delgado's office. And that's it.
Any questions about bills? We don't have to take any action on that, correct?
We have to vote on it to pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve paying the bills.
So moved, Cheryl.
Second, Jeff.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Report of the Projects Committee. Cheryl?
I will let the meeting notes stand for the report from the Projects Committee.
Does anyone have any questions about the notes or anything in the notes? Okay, new and unfinished business. First item on the new and unfinished business is a seeker resolution for Zayed Properties. Jody?
Or Joe.
Or Joe, or both?
Should have in your package the secret resolution. Basically, we're agreeing that we're adopting what the village already did
Village of Cooperstown.
and accepting their findings.
Joe, do you want to add anything?
The only thing I'll add is that, again, we're bootstrapping behind the village, so we're just confirming their action. So, and as a governmental entity, as you know, we can't take any final action with respect to the project until we've considered seeker. So that's the purpose for the resolution.
This is Jeff. This is Jeff. I don't know if this is, I just want to throw this out. I don't know if it's appropriate timing. And it's just a housekeeping item, but in the matrix where we scored the project and make sure that it ticked all the boxes, there's a math error. It says 11 1/4. It should be 12 1/4. Should be the score.
Sorry, thanks, Jeff.
And then just on the cost benefit analysis, one other question. I read it and I can understand what we're doing, but then it came down to a ratio of 7-to-1 regional to state, and there's no further discussion. So I might be behind the curve, but is that a good thing? How do we compare to what we're supposed to do on the cost benefit? What does that 7-to-1 mean?
Okay, what the 7-to-1 means is that there are the 7 benefits that we're receiving versus the cost that we're giving up as one. So as long as it's greater than 1-to-1, it's a positive sign. To be honest, this is the last time we're using that report. They're as of December 31st, they're going to cease operations. So we'll have to find another independent reviewer for us. We're looking to use the MRB group right now. Actually, it's about a third cost cheaper. But we've had
Okay, so for future reference, we should have a conclusion. I think just a conclusion statement.
Okay. Because it's such a positive number is what you're saying, right, Jeff? Yeah. You're on mute, Jeff.
He said, yeah.
Yeah,
Thought
we
you'd
can
like
do
that, Dave.
No, I didn't listen to hear what you had to say, but
No,
I agree.
I think that it just stops at 7-to-1, and I think we just have to have the conclusion statement that says it passed and how it passed versus what the test is. That's all.
Right.
The only thing I will add, this is Joe Scott, is that I'm not aware of any, quote, recommended ratios. The direction that we get from state government and the state legislature and the statute is that we have to do a cost benefit analysis. So we've done that, and we need to analyze the numbers, which is really what Jeff is suggesting. I've seen all sorts of ranges, 50-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1, and I could certainly imagine a situation where an IDA board would move forward on a project where there was a negative cost benefit, because there may be non-financial impacts that outweigh the financial cost, so to speak, of the project. But the important thing is to do exactly what you're doing, which is to discuss the cost benefit analysis, discuss the numbers, and then make a decision based on that.
Interesting. So there's no standard necessarily numerically, is what you're saying.
I am not aware of any. That's correct.
No, and as Joe indicated, even if you have a negative number, a negative cost benefit, you can still approve the project. You just have to, the statute requires that we do a cost benefit analysis. The problem with cost benefit analysis for housing projects is traditionally they don't work, because you don't know if those people are moving into the area and taking a job, or they already have a job and are just moving across the street. So almost on all of the housing projects, we're going to have this discussion that the cost benefit analysis really is almost meaningless, but we're required to do.
It's really a continuation of the discussions we've been having for quite a while now about housing, versus a commercial enterprise building with, X number of people working inside, and the different ways we have to look at it. So.
And that's one of the reasons, Joe can explain a little bit clearer, is that the reason that he's looking for documentation that there's a short of housing is that's really the criteria that we would be using to vote on any housing project, whether it's in Oleana, Cooperstown. Is there a shortage of housing that this is meeting a need for?
Any other
and
questions?
then just
Sorry,
and to further elaborate on that, as kind of an interesting sidelight, we're working on a very large project in the Hudson Valley where there's not exactly a competing developer, but a developer who's very upset about that particular project moving forward. And that developer has means, and he's actually sued our IDA client to challenge the approval process that we followed with respect to that project. It's really not relevant to the cost benefit analysis, but what is relevant is that we succeeded very well at the litigation level, and the reason we succeeded is that the court found that the process that the IDA followed was not arbitrary and capricious, which is the standard that a governmental body is tested on in connection with its consideration of a project. And the way to meet that standard is to have a complete file, have deliberations in your meeting, and have a very strong and involved, descriptive resolution. And I will send you a copy of the case because it makes for interesting reading. But that's really what we're all talking about here in terms of the standard that we need to follow.
So Joe, are we checking the boxes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about recording all these meetings is that all this discussion is recorded and is part of the file. Where 10 years ago, discussions were that people looked at the minutes, and if they weren't recorded in the minutes, they assumed that there wasn't any discussion. So actually recording these is a big help for meetings.
Any other questions regarding the seeker? Could I have a motion for secret resolution for approval?
Make the motion.
Andrew.
Second,
Second.
and we have to do a roll call vote. Megan?
Jeff Joyner is absent. Dave Rowley.
Yes.
Craig Gelbsman is absent. Jeff Lord.
Yes.
Tom Armayo.
Yes.
Patricia Kennedy.
Yes.
Andrew Marietta.
Yes.
And Cheryl Robinson.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. Next on the agenda is a resolution regarding the public hearing for this project.
So again, this resolution is basically authorizing me and Megan to advertise and set a public hearing sometime in January on this project so that we can open it up for public discussion.
I assume that's going to be virtual.
Yes.
Well, hopefully.
Well, actually, this is Joe Scott. I need to discuss that with Jody. The state legislation that authorizes remote meetings wasn't broad enough to include public hearings. There's a way to accomplish that indirectly, but I'll review that with Jody to figure out a way to accommodate both schedule and if there is a desire to hold it remotely, we can accomplish that.
Okay.
Well, and Joe, what we did with the project that we did in Milford, I went to, and we'll do the same here. I'll go to Cooperstown and hold a public hearing, but we also do it virtually so that anybody can call in.
We have to live stream them anyway.
Yeah, that's one of the ways you can do it. That's great. Awesome.
And where in Cooperstown would you hold this public hearing?
Probably the village hall.
And this is going to, as far as you know, this is January.
Yeah.
Notification has to be how many days?
10.
10 days. Okay. Questions about this resolution or the public hearing? Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Andrew.
Second?
Second, Cheryl.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Roll call.
Jeff Joyner is absent. Dave Rowley.
Yes.
Craig Gelbsman is absent. Jeff Lord.
Yes.
Tom Armayo.
Yes.
Patricia Kennedy.
Yes.
Andrew Marietta.
Yes.
And Cheryl Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the 2021 mortgage approval resolution for the Zayed property. Jody?
We can approve certain benefits up to $100,000 or less than $100,000. And Josh is anxious with his bank to close on, I guess, a permanent loan, not a construction loan. And they would like to close by the end of the year. So we're looking to do this so that he can recoup his mortgage reporting tax. And Joe, do you want to add anything to this?
No, that's complete, Jody. What we're essentially doing here is bifurcating the approval. We're approving up to $100,000 of benefits before the public hearing, and then considering the balance of the benefits after the public hearing as required by the statute.
Questions?
So Joe, just to build on kind of, again, making sure we have all our ducks in a row in documentation, the matrix that we use to determine housing eligibility, as Jeff pointed out, was over our threshold score. Is that something we should be recording on record or should be included with the notes so that we ensure that that is part of the conversation?
Sorry, was that directed to Joe Scott?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, it should be part of the discussion, which by you bringing it up, it is, and it's in the file, so it's clear that we reviewed it as part of the analysis.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Random question, I apologize. Can't help my mind sometimes, but let's say we approve this motion to fund up to 100,000. We bifurcate our approvals of benefits. And then we go to a public hearing and the public hearing has a raucous opposition. We're still good, right?
Joe?
Well, and that's a very good question. The situation that puts the IDA in is that you could still move forward regardless of how raucous the public hearing is. You can consider those comments, review them, and still move forward, or you can consider them, decide that you don't want to move forward, and limit the amount of benefits given to the company to $100,000.
That answer your question, John?
Well, I think it has to answer all of our minds that we're okay if we do that because we have control and we can limit our exposure and we're not going to get criticized for that.
Right.
And to be
Yeah,
honest,
I mean, and sorry, go ahead, Jody, and then I'll add a point.
yeah, I was just going to say that given all the approvals that this project has already received from the village board, the Historic Preservation Review Committee, the zoning board, and the planning board, I would have thought that if there was going to be opposition to it, it would stop by one of those boards. But I was quite pleasantly surprised that all those boards actually approved this project.
So the likelihood of having a problem with the public hearing is probably low. However, it looks like, based on the question and the answer, we are covered pretty well if something does change.
We are covered in the sense that we can stop. The issue here is that we're balancing the need for the developer to move forward and the request from the developer, because what we're doing here is accommodating their schedule with respect to their desire to close as soon as possible on the bank financing. But we are covered in the sense that we will be legally in compliance if we decide to stop based on the discussions at the public hearing.
Questions? This was an extensive approval process going through the various boards, et cetera.
Maybe this is the appropriate time to say, Josh, you guys put a lot of thought into what appears to be a not only needed but a very well thought out and presented project. So I don't think there's going to be any issues with that. I just want to make sure we're covering the compliance bases.
Yeah.
Right, and under the statute, you can approve up to $100,000 without a public hearing. So that's why we would vote on this today, because you don't need a public hearing to do that.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else have a question with regard to this resolution? Can I have a motion for approval?
I move.
Second,
Second, Cheryl?
any other discussion? All in favor? Roll call.
Jeff Joyner is absent. Dave Rowland.
Yes.
Craig Dubsman is absent. Jeff Lord.
Yes.
Tom Armeo.
Yes.
Patricia Kennedy.
Yes.
Andrew Marietta.
Yes.
And Cheryl Robinson.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Good
Next,
luck, Josh.
and just to reiterate what Jeff said, this is incredibly well-designed project, and the fact that it went through all the hurdles, for a project in the village of Cooperstown really attests to that point, I think, extremely well. So that's excellent. Governance Committee, Jody.
Yes, at our governance committee meeting, we had a lengthy discussion regarding compensations as well as the cost of living increases, inflation that are occurring throughout the area. And I believe that the chairman of the governance committee was going to make a recommendation to vote on today.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. I guess I'm making a motion that we would be adjusting Megan's salary to $46,000 based on our discussions.
Just other discussion? I just have a quick question. You sent an email on clarifying the civil service.
Yes, the discussion besides the salary came up as to whether we could make Megan an exempt employee. On most of the IDAs that I listed on that sheet of paper, those that have exempt employees are government employees. Like the Broome County IDA, they're under the Broome County Civil Service section. They're actually technically government employees. Montgomery County, for example, all of their IDA people are government employees. They work for Montgomery County. So under that scenario, they're not governed by the labor department. They're governed by civil service law. And civil service law says, if you're dealing with confidential information, I can make you an exempt employee. If you have the power to make decisions without me being here, you could be an exempt employee. We're not municipal employees. So as such, we fall under not the civil service law, but under the Department of Labor. And under the Department of Labor law, there's a standard that says for an exempt employee, you have to make a certain salary range. And that's the distinction between the two. Hopefully, the next time we go through a merit increase, Megan will reach that plateau. But at the present time, we've agreed that she's going to be doing timesheets starting January 1st.
That's just a clarification, discussion that we had when we were in the governance committee. I would just add that, like in a school district, wholly governed by civil service, the one exempt employee is normally the superintendent's secretary / often board clerk, and that goes without saying that they're an exempt, but that's about it. So any other discussion? I just wanted to clarify that.
I just want to clarify that comment, David. I think that in the nonprofit sector, which we are 501c6, we're a quasi municipality, but I compare us more to a C6 structure. And exempt employees amongst small nonprofits is very common. I just want to make that clarification. Especially a 2-person operation. So I just want to state for our meeting that our goal, as we discussed at the governance committee, as Jody mentioned, would be, having 2 exempt employees. I think that's our ultimate goal, if I'm not correct in stating that.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else?
You have a motion?
We have a motion.
But not a second.
Can I have a second?
I'll second. I don't think you need that when it's coming out of a committee recommendation, but I'll send it. I'll second it.
Say that again, Cheryl, I'm sorry.
I don't believe you need a second when it's coming out of a committee recommendation, but I will second it either way.
We don't need a roll call on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Ioxus, Jody.
Okay, we finally completed the pre-application for Ioxus that was sent in 2 days ago. Basically, what we're requesting is a $750,000 grant for them to purchase a new piece of equipment. The state called me yesterday that they really.
Can you hear Jody? I don't think anybody can hear you.
Oh, I probably should face the microphone. Basically, we submitted the pre-application 2 days ago. The state called me yesterday. They said they really find this project a top project that they want to fund. And they've asked us to quickly do some minor adjustments to the pre-app. They'll approve that by Monday, and then for us to work on the full grant application. They would like for us to take it to their January board meeting, which I think is a little too premature. We'll probably make the February board meeting, but it looks like we're likely to help Ioxus with their expansion plans. The project would result in the retainage of an additional 20 manufacturing jobs and the addition of 30 new manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, is that at the present location?
Yes.
Okay.
Jody, is the equipment just additive to what they currently do, or is it new?
No, this would be new. It's a new type of laser machine that actually has to slice into certain types of metals that they're going to be doing. The prototype was actually developed in Tennessee, but they don't have the equipment there as well. So their company was making a decision whether to do the manufacturing either in Tennessee or in Oneonta. We convinced them that if we get the funding to put in the new machinery here, that they would do all their production at the Oneonta facility.
It's kind of a win-win situation, it looks like to me at this particular point. So anything else you can add to that?
No, I've been working with 3 of their vice presidents at Ioxus here. They are all very excited about moving ahead with this project. And the most difficult thing, and I'll be working with their chief financial officer to do the spreadsheets. We have to demonstrate that without this added product line, that they would in fact be in jeopardy of losing their existing manufacturing staff because of lack of revenues coming in. They actually were hit very hard by the pandemic. They didn't lose a number of contracts, but a number of contracts were put on hold for a year delay or a 3-quarter delay. And that's really hurt their cash flow. So this new line of product will open up a whole new opportunity for this plant.
Chief Financial Officer out of Tennessee?
Yes.
Yeah.
As part of our relationship, with them, do we see any financial information?
What we will see is we will see all of their current balance sheets as well as 3-year projections. Right now, they only have, we've received their 2020 balance sheets.
Have you received an income statement or profit and loss?
We'll need those for the grant application, the full grant application, so we will receive those.
Just curious, thanks.
We'll also receive the personal tax returns of the president of the company down in Tennessee.
Other questions? Okay. Exempt solar project.
Exempt, they did receive the village or the city of Oneonta zoning board approval. They reached out to us, they sent us a copy of the proposal to do a pilot, but they did not fill out our standard pilot application. I re-emailed it 3 times to them. And finally, last week, they called and said they were in the process of filling out our standard pilot application. Their attorneys are reviewing it right now, which was one issue. And the second issue was that the cost estimates they're revising based on, again, slowdown and prices of materials increasing. So they're going to give us a more factual revised cost estimate. But they expect to get that application to us in January. So that project is still moving ahead.
If you recall, this is on the Hartwick
Yes.
campus. And I know the connecting line runs into the town of Oneonta, correct?
That's correct.
And I think that's not been an issue at all. Is that, or can you tell me where that stands?
When they submitted their proposed pilot analysis, they did not include any numbers for the town of Oneonta.
I know that it's been a discussion at a town board meeting, so.
So I will reach out to the new town supervisor in January and see what they want to do on that.
I think the entirety of the solar panel construction is in the city though, is it not?
Yes.
10 acres? Is that, do I recall, or is
10 acres.
was it a 10
I
acre?
want to say that's about right.
I think it was a 10 acre.
Megan is now on the city planning commission, so she reviewed that project, although did not vote on it. She abstained.
If you recall, these are tracking systems, not your not the system that Corning put in. So they are, in many cases, they are without question more efficient, capturing energy. Anything else on that, Megan, that you can add?
No.
Just my last question. Anticipation of construction. Do we have any idea what that is?
I understand that they want to do it starting as soon as they can in the spring.
Okay.
I think the college president wants it done before she leaves office.
Done?
Yeah.
She's leaving in June, so that'd be a tall order, I would guess. So, any other questions regarding the Exempt solar project? Anything else, Joe?
That is it. Hopefully we'll have some additional good news in January.
Right. Public comment period. Is there anyone listening in from the public?
No, we would see them on there.
Yeah. We do not need an executive session as far as I know, unless someone else suggests that we do. And can I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Thank you, Jeff.
Do we need a second?
No.
We are adjourned.
CRC.
Yep. And we're moving to a very long meeting. And that is the, if you look at the board agenda for the CRC meeting, Thursday, December 23rd. Can we do roll call, Megan, please?
Yep, Jeff Joyner is absent. Dave Rowley,
Present?
Jeff Lord.
Here.
Craig Gubelsman is absent. Tom Armeo,
Here.
Patricia Kennedy,
Here.
Cheryl Robinson,
Here.
and Andrew Marietta.
Here.
Okay, we're good.
We will forego the chairman's remarks and move into approval of the meeting minutes. If everybody has had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from October 28th, 2021. Can I have a motion for approval?
So move, Cheryl.
Second?
Second,
Patricia?
Jeff.
The second, Jeff?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
New and unfinished business, Jody.
We have nothing for the CRC.
Executive session.
Can I ask just a quick question? This is related to both organizations. Are the meeting dates for 2022 are those already established? I mean, are we just sticking with the same schedule? Just a logistics question.
So we would, I think as of right now, since the bylaws haven't changed, we are keeping the meeting at assuming monthly, and if we need to cancel them, or.
Right. We'll have to sit down with Joe and figure out what we would have to do to go to bi-monthly meetings.
Every other month, yeah.
Because we had that discussion in governance, right? About a bi-monthly.
Yeah, the bylaws would have to.
And there's another governance, obviously, another meeting in January based on the schedule, because governance is every 4 months. So just because of the new year, it'll be in January again. So if we want to update the bylaws, Andrew, we could meet before that meeting. I believe it's January 13th.
Their general consensus,
Yeah.
general consensus that we don't need to meet every month.
Right.
And that we should look at adjusting the bylaws.
For the board.
For the board, the committee,
Right.
committees would
Still meet monthly.
CRC, yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we're gonna move in that direction.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think we, on the governance agenda, we might also want to just, I wasn't sure with Josh's resignation, what the thoughts were on that board spot as well.
I didn't hear, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that, Andrew.
Josh's resignation. We have an open position that if we have a recommendation, the county organizational meeting is in January. Not that this would be something to bring up, but I think it would be something, that if we had thoughts about it, that we would want to start that conversation in 2022.
So can someone clarify for me the process in the past, because it goes through the county board, as Andrew's saying?
Correct.
Have we made recommendations to the board before? Jeff, shaking, yeah, we have. So that will go to Dave. Does that go to Dave Bliss, Andrew, or?
Yes, but I think it could. Dave makes the appointment, but I do think it could be even something that the IGA committee could, but ultimately Dave would have to be would approve it. Yes.
And that committee meets in January?
Yes, IGA meets monthly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would certainly think we would want our input in trying to select the best candidate to move forward and stay, we're in a very, in my mind, constructive group trying to get things done, and want to make sure that we keep in that direction with people we're working with.
Suggestions, Jody? How we would move forward at this point?
Well, they would probably want someone from.
They're gonna want somebody from the northern end of the county. That would be their preference.
Totally reasonable.
Yeah.
I do know that there's some people in Richfield Springs that have expressed an interest in the past in being on. We could reach out. I could reach out to some of those people and see if they're still interested.
Are you hearing Jody? Okay, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we can also ask Josh if he has a recommendation.
I'd have to think about it.
Right.
I can send a couple names over if I think of things.
Are we looking at, to have a suggestion for the meeting? Can we do that, or is that too soon?
It's January 13th.
We could probably do it by then.
I would say that rather than, we could attempt to do that, but not to be pressured to make that decision if we don't have the right person. That I don't think, putting a deadline, to me, it only makes sense to make that decision if we have somebody we think is the right addition.
I agree with you 100%. So if you have thoughts, or a person in mind, get it to Jody. Jody, people that that are interested, if Josh has a recommendation, get that information out to us. And if we can come to a conclusion, great. If we can't, then we wait till the February meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we should all be in a position to discuss a recommendation. And anything else?
Nope.
Motion for adjournment.
Tom,
Thank you, Tom.
We are adjourned. Everybody have a great holiday,
Happy holiday.
and we'll see you in 2022.
right, we
Same
made
to
it.
you.
Holidays.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.